So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Yin Yoga. Let's take a moment to center and begin the practice. Allowing yourself to sit in a comfortable seat, nice, long, tall spine. And today I want you to pay attention to your jaw and your throat and your head and where it's sitting on the axis of your spine. I have a tendency to tip my head a little bit off to the left. You might have a similar pattern. And you might even take your head and gently rock it from right to left to C, and then drop your chin down and lift your chin up to C, and then find a neutral place. Allow your tongue to move away from the roof of your mouth. Allow the throat to feel soft, the jaw to release, creating a little bit more space around the cervical spine. When we talk about being in a yin class, we work with the higher vibrational states, or the lighter energy, if you will, that comes from the heart center and moves upward. So taking a few minutes here to breathe into the heart center. Deliberately expanding front body, side body, and even back body. Think rib cage. And as we move into that breath pattern, can you notice if there's spaciousness around the throat, or does it feel a little tight? If it feels a little tight, just allow the breath to move upward, prana-filled space. Noticing if that sensation flows upward towards your ears, maybe around your face or side of the head. It's subtle. And you could imagine that from this heart center energy, we expand the prana upward and outward, not just inside along the spine, but outward around the body. And take one more breath like that. And then pause. Allow the hands to come together at the heart center. December is a light-filled time, magical time, where there's laughter and joy and hope. And so allowing that breath and that prana to fill your heart space and upward helps us to stay in that vibrational state that's full of hope and joy and laughter. Take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, you can release your hands. You can flutter open your eyes and come back. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so today I want to start with us lying down on our belly with your head on your forearms or on your backs of your palms. We're going to start there. And as we're in this first posture, this first shape, I want you to just become aware of the breath in the belly. We just spent some time in the heart center. Take a moment now to feel a little bit more centered in the belly. Because as wonderful as the heart center and the energies are around that area and moving upward, we still want to stay grounded. And so let's get into the physical body. Let's feel the belly into the floor when we breathe. And here is a nice place for you to take a little journey in your body to see if there's anything that you need to take care of today. Now we're going to move through a little somatic movement pattern. And we'll start super easy. So I want you to turn your toes under so that you feel like you're trying to curl them underneath your foot, and then push through your legs to lift your kneecaps and your legs off the floor. So you feel your pelvis is down, but your legs are now engaged. Can you feel that? So we're going to stay with that, and we're going to just inhale and lift the head and shoulders away from the hands. And then when you exhale, relax your legs and bring your head back down. Just keep moving in that pattern, pressing legs, lifting head, inhaling, and then exhaling and let everything come back down. Inhaling and expanding, and exhaling, come back down. Now, next time your head comes up, turn your eyes to the left. So it's like your left ear is going towards the sky. And then lower yourself back down, forehead down. Other side, pushing up with your legs and turning eyes to right. And then when you're exhaling, come back down. So you keep your toes on the floor and you just push through your legs so that your legs get engaged and active while you are lifting your head, shoulders, and turning your head. Inhaling. And the reason I want you to keep your toes on the floor is I want you to stay grounded. I don't necessarily want your feet hovering off the floor. Your body knows it's solid when your feet are touching. Belly down brings grounding, stability. Let this be your last one. And then let your head rest on your hands, let go of your feet, and pause again. And take a couple of breaths here. Notice what you notice. From here, bring your hands along the side of your chest, push yourself up away from the floor. And we're going to go into wide knee child's pose next. So toes together, knees apart. Let your hips sit back wherever you can. Remember to use your blankets or your bolsters behind your legs. And then if you are able, walk your hands out in front of you and melt your chest and head down. Maybe you need a blanket underneath your forehead because the floor feels too far away. This is our first yin pose, so I want you to make sure that you're finding that edge of sensation. As we pause here. And if your arms don't like to go out, maybe you've got shoulder things going on, or maybe something's going on in your neck, try to soften your arms and bring them a little wider, maybe elbows on the floor. So find a way that you can come into a position of stillness. I definitely want something under, like I want your forehead on something. So not letting it hang out in Never Never Land. So I'm in this little membership group, and the woman does a meditation every morning that I can choose to get in or not. And this morning, and she always talks a little bit before we go into it. And this morning, she was talking about something that really struck me. And she said, nothing has gone wrong. There's nothing wrong. And she continued to talk about how when people are going through challenges, there's a lot that's wrong. And they're frustrated around whatever the challenges are because they want it just to be different. They want it to be better, whatever that means. And I'm talking in a very big general sense. It could mean something with yourself. It could be something with the world. But the teaching this morning was about trusting, surrendering to this idea that, our lives are like a matrix, and one moment interweaves with another moment, interweaves with another moment. And at the end of whatever cycle you're in, you could look back and go, wow, I really understand why that all happened. Have you ever had that experience? Like you're sitting there and you're thinking about your life and you look back a year, 5 years, 10 years, and you realize that you're in a different place and you could even be a different human because of whatever happened before. And I can tell you that's a hard one. Yeah, that's a hard one. I believe it, and it's hard. So I wanted to share that because we can go through this duality of like, but everything's got to be perfect and everything's got to be wonderful and everything's got to be just right. No, it really isn't like that. It's not how life is. That's not how being a human is. Not how our world interacts. Take a nice deep breath. And then slowly starting to bring yourself up. If you have blocks here, you might choose to use them. We're going to move into a kneeling lunge. So one foot goes forward, doesn't matter to me what side. And I'm going to show you with my blocks on the highest level, because what I'm looking for is this back leg hip flexor mostly. And you're going to start to let your knee come forward and your hip come forward and your chest come up. So this is what I want. I want the body upright rather than down. So this is why I was suggesting the blocks. And bring the blocks underneath you to a place where you feel like you can push down a little bit to keep your shoulders back away from your ears. And then this is our second shape. And so we find that shape, letting the hips feel heavy and dense. That there's that stability piece, that grounding. I'm letting my knee go past my ankle because I want to get some of this fascia around my foot involved. So if that feels okay to your ankle and your knee, let yourself do that. And you're just pausing here. This can be a harder, much harder shape because you're actually working in it a little bit. Eyes are forward. And then think about where your head is again. Does your head feel a little neutral? Most of us, our head is forward to the body. So you might even take a moment to slide your head back like it's on a level surface. And you just kind of bring it back a centimeter. Really small action. And if you want to get really technical, the roof of your mouth, if you can touch it with your tongue and slide your tongue back towards the back of the roof of your mouth, that's the center of your skull. And let that action of the tongue sliding back bring your head into alignment. So we think about from the middle of the head, not from the top or the front. And we're opening up the front of the body here, thinking a lot about this heart center and the light expansion, energy of joy. And you just might notice your own body sensations and then your own mental state around it all. And it's a really nice opportunity to just play with connection, deeper connection to the body, to the self, and how we live in the world. Take a nice deep breath. And then as you exhale, you're just going to straighten your front leg. Go slow. And I want the front leg to go straight, and I want your back leg hip to stack over your knee. So if you're bent-legged like I am, you might wiggle your front foot forward a little. More than anything, I want your hips to feel like they're moving backward and your heart to move forward. So in this shape, maybe you put your blocks down so they're lower, but your arms are straighter. Or maybe if you're lower, you could put your forearms down, but you can see if I do that, I'm all rounded and kind of collapsed, and I'd rather not do it that way. I've got my foot flat on the floor so that the top of the leg gets involved here, not just the back. And then continue to think about where your head is in every position. Can you think about your tongue sliding along the back of the roof of the mouth and letting that move your head back, creating more space, more expansion around the jaw and the throat. So going back to this idea of nothing has gone wrong, everything is just as it should be. You might be, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, but, yeah, but. And I noticed the resistance I had, which is always a clue. If you do any kind of spiritual or personal work, you'll know that when things really trigger you, it isn't really about the things. It's about whatever's going on with you. And so I kind of had to smile around that. I was like, oh, look at all my resistance to that statement. Look at how I don't necessarily like that idea, that I want everything to be perfect and wonderful. And then what comes up really is trust. Trust and surrender that things are lining up exactly as they should. There's a bigger picture that we don't have a clue what it really is. So finding that trust, I'm going to call it, and using that trust to help you with your joy and your expansion, your deeper knowing. Take one more breath. And then go ahead and release this front leg a little bit and then slide it back. Before we go to the other side, taking your hips back where you can, take your blocks forward. I've got them on the second side, and I just want to hook my fingers kind of over the top of the edge, and I'm going to bring my hips back to make my spine nice and long, to make my arms nice and long. Put your ears between your arms and give yourself a little traction here. Take one more breath. And then slowly come back up. And then just switch your legs around. Other leg comes forward. What are you doing? What are you doing, phone? And then move your blocks, if you can, to the highest setting. And let your hips start to drift downward and forward until you find that first edge. And remember to put the blocks underneath you so you're not out here in front. You're more connected to the torso area of the body. And let the hips drop forward wherever you find that first sensation. So this is where I was introducing where the head is, right? Because the head tends to want to be down and forward. Can you keep your shoulders towards the back of your body? So you might notice if your hands are out here, bring your hands back more so you've got more ability to do that. And then put your head in that nice, relaxed, neutral position. I've mentioned my body worker before, and I've had many massages and many different types of body work. And this particular woman spends an enormous amount of time around my jaw and my neck, in my ears. And I asked her, because my issue has always been my lower back. And I asked her, why do you spend so much time on my neck and head? And she says, well, energetically, you're pretty stuck there. You don't really have a lot of fluidity. And if your neck is stuck, your sacrum and your hips are stuck. They like work in tandem together. And same thing can be true the other way around, right? And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I've never heard anybody tell me that before. But it has really been beneficial, her approach. Really beneficial. And it's brought a lot more awareness to my own, like I wasn't paying attention to my neck at all. I mean, we don't usually, right? Unless something hurts and then we go, oh. So how does it feel when you think about expansion of breath and prana up around your throat and mouth? Or how does it feel when you slide your tongue backward on the roof of your mouth and you can feel the head just almost gliding backward because of that? You're moving from the inner part of your body, not from the outer part of the body. And so you take one more breath here. And then slow and careful, we move back into the second position, which is straight front leg, hips stacked over back knee. And this is where you can change the position of the blocks and find a way where you can hold yourself in this shape. The tension here mostly is on the hamstring and the back of the leg in this position. I don't want you to collapse down, keep your spine long, and try to keep your big toe on the floor as kind of an anchor. And then we just breathe. Find the sweet space here. So what does December represent for you? As I said in the beginning, it feels like Thanksgiving was a long time ago. It was only a few days ago. A lot has happened in my world, just a lot has been going on. And so it's maybe that's why it feels like a long time ago. But you could maybe contemplate, what does December mean for you? Is it a time of lightness and joy and more expansion, or is it a time of almost drudgery because you have to buy the presents and you have to go to the parties and there's a lot of obligation? What does it mean for you? And if there is a lot of that resistance, how can you shift it? What is it that would make you feel more expansive and joy-filled? Interesting questions. Interesting contemplation. The fact that you're here in this yin class tells me that that's an opportunity for joy and expansion, lightness, freedom. Not just another check off your to-do list, like, oh yeah, I did my yin class. Great, check it off. Nothing wrong with that, but there's something deeper going on. So finding that grounding and stability in the physical denseness of the body so that we can sense and feel that deep internal lightness, freedom, joy. Take one more breath. And then as you release, just go ahead and bend the knee a little bit and then slide your foot back. And one more time, we'll go back to that extension. So if you can bring your hips back wherever they go, push your blocks away from you and put your hands on the top so that you're about level with your own shoulders. And sit hips back and reach arms forward, not to squish up your neck and shoulders, but to create more length along the sides of your body, more evenness. Let your ears sit between your arms. And I always kind of touch my head, my ears to my arms to make sure they're in the right spot. And then can you think about your tongue sliding back on the roof of your mouth, moving the head from that point back slightly. One more breath. Good. Inhale, coming forward. From here, move your blocks out of the way. We're going to do one more here, and then we're going to sit up. So I want you to come down onto your belly. Take your feet apart. Let your elbows be underneath your shoulders. And so we're going to move first before we hold here. So take a breath in the middle. And as you exhale, turn your eyes to the left and bring your chin towards your shoulder, looking over your shoulder at your left foot. Inhale, come back to center. And exhale, turn your chin to the right shoulder, looking over towards your right foot. Now we're going to do this back and forth, and I want you to think about letting your shoulders and your upper body move a little bit so that you're moving through not only the head, neck, but also shoulders and torso. Belly stays on the floor, pelvis is still, legs are quiet, and you're just moving back and forth. Taking a moment for internal massage, lubricating tissues, lubricating energetic channels. You've got a lot of lymph nodes around your neck and armpit chest. And so if the neck gets jammed up, everything else is jammed up. Take a nice deep breath in the center and pause there. Now, just in case if your neck is bothering you at all, in this posture, take your block and put your head on your block and stay. And sometimes you have to mess with the height of the block. Maybe step two together. If your neck feels all right, just let your shoulders drop down your back. Let your chest feel a little bit heavy. You can even close your eyes here. If it feels good to drop your head, let yourself do that. And we just pause and breathe. Feeling the breath in the belly. And then as you're here, feeling the breath in the belly, can you notice how it will rise up towards the chest? So it's not just isolated in the belly, it's a completely different breath if you focus on it. So the inhale comes from the belly, but then if the inhale continues, you might notice that the rib cage is expanding. And so we're bringing the breath from that place of stability up to the lightness, up to the heart center. And so in your mind's eye, you might think front body expanding, side body expanding. And bring that upward towards your throat and face if you can sense and feel it. Now we're in Sphinx pose. If for the last minute you want to go up into seal pose, go ahead. Hands are wider. And depending on how close they are to the body and how fluid you are, will be how big the back bend is, right? So I like mine a little further away. Just softening into the last few seconds here. Really notice and sense and feel what's going on in the body and how you might choose to move away from sensations because they're challenging. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or you might choose to push even harder because you want it to be super hard. Try to find that sweet spot. Take one more nice deep breath here. And then as you exhale, let yourself come down and pause in that crocodile pose again that we were in the beginning. Head on your hands, elbows are relaxed, shoulders are let go. And then go ahead and push yourself up away from the floor, nice and slow. And we're going to come to a sitting position. You might want your bolster or your blocks or both. I'm going to sit up on my little pillow here. As I've taught you, it's really nice for your sacrum and your lower back, even if you're super flexible. We're going to go to butterfly pose. And if you've got a bolster near you, put it in front of you so that it's cradling into the inner thighs and resting on your feet. If you want it higher, of course, you can put your blocks down on your feet, make it higher, or just use your blocks without a bolster. And then sit up nice and tall. Take a moment there in that full extension, and then let yourself start to hinge forward from the pelvis. So you don't want to drop your head necessarily. Hinge, 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 hinge. And then you'll start to find your end point. Can you rest somewhere in that end point without too much flexion? You can do a little, just don't do an excessive amount. And then decide, do you want to support your head? Maybe you're going to bend your elbows and put your head in your hands. Maybe you're going to let your head hang loose. Maybe you're going to put a block under your head. So just as a reminder, because of the season of life we're all in, forward flexion, bending forward in your spine is the most stressful position you can put it in. And seated is the most stressful even still. And so we want to make sure that there's not an excessive amount of just rounding of the back and hanging out here for any length of time. So if you've got any anything going on, osteoarthritis, osteopenia, osteoporosis, osteobone, then you are a little bit less bendy. I'll call it that. You just breathe into the expansion of the back body now. Breathing, allowing that breath to, can you sense and feel the entire back body when you're breathing? I've got a workshop coming up this week. It's my first in-person workshop since COVID, actually. And I'm doing it on stress and sleep. Because you can't really talk about sleep without stress, and you can't really talk about stress without sleep. So we're doing it together. And, December, as I mentioned earlier, and the season that we're in, basically since the beginning of November until the end of January, can be a very challenging season for lots of reasons. And it can push our stress buttons big time. Whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's all three. And so coming to a class like Yin, or even doing a short 10 or 15 or 20-minute practice on a regular, is really going to serve your nervous system well during this season. Because, you know, life is challenging sometimes, it just is. And so what do we have for tools? Do we have meditation as a tool? Last month in November, Chris and I's healthy habit for the month was pranayama. And we did a lot of pranayama teaching, and I did a lot of pranayama work in my classes. And what they say about pranayama is that it will shift you immediately from where you are to a different state, but it will not be sustaining. And you can think about that analogy of, you know, have you ever heard take 3 deep breaths before you say anything or before you react? That's what they're talking about. It's like, oh, it will shift me into a more conscious, more, you know, responsive state, but I can't sustain that because I'm not going to do that breath pattern over and over and over again, right? So you know what sustains us? Meditation, which is our healthy habit for December. Meditation. And we'll be talking a lot about that in our emails and on Facebook and things. So if you are not a meditator and you want to be, just start with like a minute. Watch your breath and sit for a minute, put a timer on. And you'll be surprised at how quickly that helps you. And then move it to 2 after a while, and then move it to 3, and before you know it, you're doing 5 and then 10. My practice is about 20 minutes. And if I get in my own way around my practice and I'm like, God, I don't really have 20 minutes. I've got this and that and the other thing to do. I'm wound up pretty much all day. But if I stop and take the 20 minutes, my day is so much more free and joy-filled. And appreciate, you know, I'm always in appreciation. Take a nice deep breath. And then slowly, slowly starting to come up. Pause when you get to the top here. Just take a moment. That was you were in that pose for a bit. Moving props and things away from you for a moment. I want you to lean back on your hands, bring your knees to the center and separate your feet. And let your knees just go from one side to the other. And it doesn't matter if they touch or not. Just letting yourself have a little bit of freedom here. So we're going to go to another sitting posture that involves this shape. And again, you can use your props or you may not, depending on who you are and what you need. So take your legs about hip distance apart or as wide as your mat if you can. And you're going to let your knees drift over to the left. If your feet and your knees are apart, your right leg's gonna rest on the floor. You can keep them closer if you need. Take your right arm around so that you're leaning on your left leg and left hip, and you're in rotation here. So notice what your spine is doing. I want it long. And then from here, you could maybe use a prop. I'm going to show you with my bolster, or you can use your blocks or nothing at all. So you can stay up like this. Or you can come down to the floor on your forearms. But remember, I want your spine long. The lower you go, the more challenging it is in your hip. And so just taking a breath here and then finding your way. Finding your way into this hip opener and twist at the same time. And so I really like this idea of even finding a minute for stillness, meditation, breath every single day, so that you can build upon it throughout the month and use it as a way to stay anchored into your own light, into your own regulated, steady, balanced state. One of the ways that I know that my meditation practice helps me is when I'm in somebody's company and that somebody is all riled up about something. Lately, it's been about politics, but it could be anything. Doesn't matter. They're all riled up, you know. And I'm actually not attached. I don't line up with that energy anymore. And so I can sit there and listen and breathe and allow that person to have the experience, but I'm not going to line up and attach myself to that and then take myself there into all of that. And I wasn't that person before. You know, the person I was before, especially if I don't meditate for a while, I can fall back into it. It's like, yeah, and that's the way, yeah, and that person's wrong, and yeah, and you just kind of get yourselves all worked up. To what end? What's the point? Makes you feel better, kind of, sort of. But then there's still all this stuff going on. So meditation has taught me to sit and be with me. Take a nice deep breath. And then very slowly bringing yourself up away from the floor. Take your whole body back the way you came down. So lean back, take your legs out so your knees are bent in front of you. And then you're just going to push with your arms and give yourself a little chest opener here, big opening. Take a nice deep breath. And then let your knees drift over to the right now. Take your left hand around and then finding your way on the side. So leaning on your right thigh, resting on your hands. If you want to come down, go ahead. You can use a bolster, blocks, or you can come to the floor. Shoulders are about level with your hips if you're down. And then we pause here for another couple minutes. We find a fluid, full breath. Let that breath move from the belly all the way up to your heart center. And then can you sense and feel it around your neck, face, ears? That sensation that you feel is prana. It's the life force energy. It gives life force to the cells of our body. It gives energy flow to the body. It helps to lubricate and nourish the actual physical tissue. And bringing your awareness to the places where you need expansion, where you feel tightness and tension. Bring your awareness there as you breathe, and you'll feel it let go. You'll feel there'll be a shift there. And if there isn't, it might be too deep. You might be too much into the posture. You might be too far in, so back up a little so you can feel a little bit more spaciousness. Whenever I do these kinds of postures, I always think about a dish rag. Now, we've all done this, right? We've taken a washcloth or a dish rag and we've twisted it to wring out the water. So think about that. If you twist it just a little bit, you get out some of the water. If you twist it more, you get out more water. If you twist it all the way to the end point where it won't go anymore, there's no more water, but then there's no more movement either. You got to the very end point of where those fibers will go. And you can keep trying to twist it, but nothing's going to happen. Our bodies are very similar in that way. And when we twist our bodies or move our bodies into shapes and we're moving the water, if you could think of it that way, we're actually hydrating the tissues. We're lubricating the tissues. But if we take it to that end point where we're reaching and trying so hard that there's nothing but, I'll call it pain or discomfort, you've gone to your end point and nothing's happening when you get there. Nothing, just suffering. And so we're all around the same age group. We all grew up with, it's got to be hard, and then it's got to even be harder in order for it to be effective. And if you didn't get tired and sweaty and hurt by the end of your class, then it was a waste of time. That's not valid information anymore. It's old school medicine. Take one more nice deep breath. And then slowly making your way back. So come in, unwind yourself, bring your legs out. And then this time, stretch your legs out in front of you. You can hold yourself up if you like. Just move your legs around a little bit, move your feet around a little bit. And then we're going to lie all the way down on our backs. Taking a moment here. And so once you lie down, because we haven't been here at all, class, this is the first time we've been here. So you might be like, oh God, that feels great. But just notice that in your body. Your body likes the hard neutral surface because it can really realign itself. And so taking a breath in, expanding the belly, let your back arch off the floor in a cow pose kind of position. And then as you exhale, bring the belly down, flatten the back to the floor, and tip the tailbone up a little bit for a cat position. Good. Now take your hands behind your head, interlace your fingers, and let the weight of your head rest on your hands. See if your elbows will go open. So when we inhale, I want you to open the belly, arch the lower back, and press your elbows into the mat. And when you exhale, bring the belly down, bring the back down, and bring your elbows up like you're cradling your head. Inhale, belly expands, heart expands, press the elbows open. Exhale. Now you can stay here, or you can do the last bit of this movement, which is when you exhale and you bring your elbows up, I want you to lift your head with your arms, kind of curling into a little shape, looking at your belly. And then inhale, go back down, open the elbows, and arch the lower back. You could even lift your chin away from your chest. Exhale, close the elbows, press the lower back into the floor, curling into a little ball. Inhaling, expanding, and opening throat. Exhaling, curling, opening the back of the neck. And so we're just ending with some somatic work like we started in the beginning, working on the different action. First time we were working on the front body, now we're working on the back body. And you might think to yourself, no, we're not, we're doing crunches. This is front body work. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the spine and the channels along the spine from the head all the way to the tailbone. And if you feel sensation in your spine as you're moving, then you're doing a great job. And this particular action, because I'm asking you to curl your head, I'm not asking you to lift your shoulders, is safer for the spine. Next time you come down, stay there, relax your arms, bring your legs down, pause. My body worker also tells me that a sensation or challenge in the body, if it's moving around, is a good thing. If it's stuck somewhere, then it's stuck somewhere, and that's not ideal. But if you happen to notice that, wow, my back was bothering me in one spot earlier, and now it's in a different spot, that's actually a good thing. All right, we're gonna get ready for Shavasana. So finding your way. Use your blankets. This is the season to get cozy. Maybe put an eye pillow over your eyes. Blanket under your legs. Allowing Shavasana to be this really luscious, sweet space. And as you find yourself coming to your shape and you are still, take a nice deep breath and let the exhale soften you into this space, into your internal light and expansion. Take a longer and deeper breath. And slowly starting to stretch and move, coming back to the body. As you feel ready, you can bend your knees and roll to a side. And slowly make your way up to sitting. Once you're seated, hands can come to the heart center. And one last time here, if you took your thumbnails and you glide them up along your breastbone, you'll feel your chest not lift. It's not a muscular action. It's more coming from the inner body. The shoulders will let go. And then take your tongue and run it along the roof of your mouth towards the back of your throat. And you'll feel your head kind of float backwards slightly. Stay with that. Notice the lightness. And gratitude always for our time together on the mat, for our deep body wisdom and guiding light. May our light always shine brightly, and may we always see the light in each other. Namaste.